Hey Internet, welcome back to Sunday! As I mentioned in another video today, it is sunny today. Hope it's sunny there where you are if you like the sun. Otherwise, cloudy, rainy, snowy, whatever type of weather you want. I hope you get what you want. Sorry for that gesture, maybe it was a little aggressive. But in any case, we wanted to continue today with a couple sort of associated videos. In the last video, we talked about sort of just the phenomenon in LTC, learning to code, where just one of the first steps after deciding that you want to sort of explore or go on this journey of learning to code is the idea of sort of getting to a point where you can understand the question, or rather the phenomenon of sort of not understanding what the question is asking for, and how that can be emotionally frustrating or aggravating, or a variety of different sort of emotions can come along with that. This video, we want to sort of talk about one strategy or one thesis that I've developed, and some of my colleagues or collaborators or peers, whatever you want to call them, batchmates, have developed. And that's just the idea of sort of intentionally exposing yourself to a lot of questions, right? So I think learning, for a lot of people, is sort of about pattern matching as well as exposure. So imagine that you're, anywhere from like 3 to 7, and you're learning addition for the first time. I imagine some 3-year-olds and some 7-year-olds could, get the concept of addition the first time it's verbally or visually explained to them. But I think for a lot of us, it's going to take a few times, if not many times, if not dozens of times, potentially hundreds of times, hundreds of problems, where we're sort of interacting with the concept of addition in order to get it, use it, master it, right? And there are these different learning methodologies, learning strategies, sort of as you progress through the concept of acknowledging something or understanding something to actually being able to apply it. And we'll sort of take a moment after this video is over and link one or more of those learning frameworks to the notes or to the description or whatever the proper name is. But I think, at least for me, it's really easy to forget that as we age, as we're adults, there's sort of this phenomenon of ego, right? So caring what other people think, or caring what we think about ourselves. And there's also sort of this idea, this expectation a lot of times to be good at something immediately or very quickly. And when we're not able to do that, it can be frustrating. So bringing this back to the idea of when beginning the journey of learning to code, sort of just if and when you don't understand a question, particularly the first few times that happens, it can be nearly intolerable or incredibly discouraging. However you want to describe it, however you feel, it can be that, right? But sort of what I've found with my own journey of learning to code is that in some ways there are strong analogies between learning to code and learning Mandarin, or learning French, or learning English, or learning really anything else. And that is just that sort of the more you're exposed to something, the more opportunities you have to interact with that, right? To understand that, to remember that, to engage with it. So the more times that you see the word trottoir, which is the French word for sidewalk, sort of the more times that you get to remember that the meaning for trottoir in French is the English equivalent of sidewalk, right? So again, some people will hear the word trottoir or see the word trottoir or look it up, and they'll get it on the first pass, but others of us will need to be exposed to that word several times, or reminded several times. And I think that's fine, just accepting that you can be anywhere on the spectrum, and wherever you are is the right place for you right now. Maybe that's sort of a more broad philosophical question, but I think just acknowledging, for me, the fact that by doing problems and approaching exercises and doing a fair number of them, I just have a better chance to understand the question, or I have a better chance of decreasing the amount of time that I need to answer the question correctly, right? So, or answer it correctly at all. I just, like, this was not something that I was able to think through in the moment. It was more an afterthought of that 1 month preparatory program where I just did lots of problem sets, and after the fact I could sort of go back and see and think about this phenomenon of being exposed in a structured way to the types of problems, the types of questions that I was then able to understand what the question was asking. And I think this is the same. So, this is the same for different sort of types of programming or different computer science topics, right? On your journey to learn to code. And so if I take the example from my own life and my own experience within this coding bootcamp, when we were learning about the MVC model, so the model view and controller model, which you use, or which can be used in Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails, sort of the web framework for Rails, for coding a web app. One of them. When you start learning about the MVC model and sort of all of the nuances, it can take, for some of us, several instances of exposure and several times where we have to actively interact and engage with building a model view controller sort of framework in order for it to like click. And at times, like, I'm personally incredibly frustrated that it takes me so long. It takes me what feels like so many times, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to get some of these more complex topics, or maybe 10 times, or maybe I don't entirely master them even now. I'm not saying, I'm brilliant or not. Man, that sounds pretentious, whatever I say. But in any case, I'm just trying to say that, I'm not trying to claim that I've got it all figured out or that I'm like an expert at these things. Just sort of like humorously, or what is the word? With humor, with a fair amount of a grain of salt and a fair amount of humor, approaching just the fact that like it's going to take me a while. And that's okay, right? Because I think people learn to code for different reasons and want different things out of it, and you're just better off when you sort of accept that some people will go a lot faster and get it a lot more quickly than you. But in any case, like, coming back to the sort of the core synthesis or hypothesis of this question, just having more rather than less exposure to a topic gives you more rather than less chances to master or interact or even just digest and internalize sort of those concepts. Just gonna check my watch. Ooh. Oh man, they're so loud. In any case, sorry that head adjustment. But in any case, I was checking my watch because sometimes my Apple Watch and my iPhone disconnect, and then I'm talking for like 5 to 20 minutes with no recording, and it makes me just the teensiest weенsiest bit sad, because I'm attached to these videos. In any case, just I think like being exposed to these problems is super, super interesting, and then there's a question of like what type of exposure do you want, like what type of structure do you need, or would you benefit from in order to like maximize or accelerate the learning or internalization process. Like, that's a separate question, maybe for a separate day, separate video. But again, just coming back to the core thesis of this video is like having exposure and having more rather than less reps is, I think, really genuinely useful, at least for me. Alright, so we sort of already summarized what we've talked about in this video. It's the core idea that having more exposure, more swings at bat, or whatever analogy you want to use, sports or otherwise, just increasing the frequency or the number of times that you see questions or see types of problems it sort of allows you the space or the ingredients to like understand what the question is asking, or think about how to respond to the question, or decrease the amount of time it takes you to answer the question. So, on that note, we would love to know what you think. Comments, suggestions about this video, but sort of more of my personal interest. Like, what do you think about this topic? Do you think it's at all valid? Do you think it's completely false? Do you think about sort of trying to increase your exposure to a certain type of problem or certain area within sort of LTC, learning to code? Has it helped for you? Has it not helped? Am I just like making stuff up on the internet and then publishing it? Who knows? But anyway, we really love those of you, or we really love when some of you, or those of you who choose to engage, do engage. Like we've said before, and like we'll say again, it's really one of the best parts of this project. So on that note, we're gonna go do laundry, trying to manage those life tasks, those life admin as we used to call them back home, and make sure that we're ready for the week so we can go to class and make more videos, all of that good jazz. So hopefully we'll see you again today if we have the chance to make another video, but if not, have a great rest of your Sunday, and we will see you again soon. Okay, catch you later, bye.